Hey, I'm Pascal from Orange Pixel, and I've been adding a bunch of new things to my game this week. And there is something of interest that I want to talk about in this week's video, because adding new things to a game, new entities, new objects, new items, anything you can come up with can create bugs in your game code. So the first thing you do is design it, create it, implement it, and test it for bugs. And keep testing it, because even if you're done with that item or object or entity or monster or creature, or even if you're done with that part of the game code, adding new game code might actually create bugs in old game code. So you're never done testing, and when you're done testing, fully done testing, or you think you're done with testing, you release the game and players will run into bugs that you've never heard of, never seen before, and they need fixing as well. So bugs are pretty annoying in game code. Now imagine that your game is pretty close to being completely random. You add a new thing and you have no idea or no way of telling if that thing is gonna be in the game as you're testing it, because randomness might just decide that this is not your day. This item, this creature, this entity, it's not gonna show up while you're testing. So for that, we need a solution. Luckily, there is a pretty easy solution. So we're gonna talk about that solution, or at least the solution I have for it, after the intro. Alright, so adding new entities to a game that is pretty much going to be random, and you have no idea if it's actually adding the entities you just created, can be a bit of a problem. So the last couple of games I've been created, I added a little console to the game, and you can actually pull down that console and then type a couple of commands, which make it a lot easier for me to just test new stuff and see if it works. And for the current game, Residual, I needed a few more commands, because pretty much things can be placed, but they might still be somewhere in the cave, and I don't want to spend an hour walking around the cave every time I need to test just a tiny little thing. So I needed to be able to locate certain entities and then have the player teleport towards it. So I added a bunch of little codes and commands that will actually take care of all those things for me. Right, so let's say we just booted up the game and I pretty much want to find a certain object, like as you can see here in the console. It also adds a bunch of debug information and just little information of all the things it's been doing while generating the world. So let's say we want to find a spit plant, which is number 18, as it says there. We can locate number 18. And it will take us to the nearest version of that entity, and then I can try and test and see if it works as I want it to work and should work. And let's say I want to try another spit plant, I can just locate, and without giving a number, it will locate the next version of the last number I gave it. So there's a list of commands, and it's not a very pretty console, it's not very user friendly, but it works for me as a developer. I know what it does and what it can do. And it's just to have a very quick way to test certain things or create certain things. So say I want to test the new creature I've been adding. I've been working on some sort of sentinel type eye creature. Anyway, I'll show you. I can just summon it by using the command monster and then give it the index number of the entity, and it will magically appear just near the player. And this allows me to do a quick test if it at least animates correctly, and if it functions correctly near the player, if it attacks the player or looks at the player, things like that. The console isn't a drop it into a game and it works kind of thing. It's just a piece of code that allows me to type in commands, and those commands have to be programmed and coded for every game because they're different for every game. But still, creating a new command takes like 5 minutes, and it will save me half an hour to an hour of testing every time. So in the end, it's very much worth it, and it's a good tip if you're a game developer. Add something like that to your game, because it makes life so much easier. Alright, fiddling with the console isn't all I've been doing this week. I've also been adding new stuff to the game, actually, because last week, you might remember, I promised you spiders. Well, I've been adding spiders, but just very small ones. There will be bigger spiders, but I just didn't get to it. So here, look at the tiny little, cute little buggers. Now the spiders are now climbing out of cobwebs. They're not being generated by the left generator, they're just appearing when you're walking into spider webs. And those spiders will try to move towards you, and if they touch you, sometimes they bite, so that lowers your energy. And they're of course afraid of fire, so you can just wave with your magic torch. Not so magic, just wave with your torch and the spiders will be gone. Of course there will be a bigger spider eventually. I'm still figuring out how I want that to appear, and since this game is not gonna have any guns or things like that, I'm not really sure how we're gonna get rid of the big spider. So I first have to figure out that part of the problem. How do we get rid of big creatures if we can't add guns to a game? Anyway, moving on. This week I also added holograms, and last week I was a hologram, and if you have no idea what I'm talking about, check last week's video, just the intro, that will be more than enough. Anyway, I wanted to add holograms to the game because I already had these consoles, but I never finished the code on those consoles, and I had to figure out how to do holograms. The first thing I tried was creating them in a pixel art sprite, just a little tiny blue sprite, and then just try to draw it like a hologram, and well, that didn't look very pretty, so I removed that one. And then I figured that a hologram is actually a light type projection, so I tried to create a hologram using my light system. And the way I've set it up is that we now basically have a light that just looks like a face, which is the hologram. So projecting that on top of the console did a very great job, and then we're cycling through 3 different frames of the hologram face, and then the transparency is a little bit random and the size is a little bit random, and then we have a pretty good hologram. Now I just had to figure out what this hologram is actually going to tell the player or say to the player, or have any meaning or any use or function in the game, because right now it just looks very pretty, but it has no function. As with a lot of stuff I'm adding to the game, it all looks very pretty, but some things are still lacking functionality. One thing I added that does not lack functionality is a new power switch. I already had switches that you could pull with a stick in there, and then we had switches that you could push a rock onto. And now we have switches that need a power core. There were already power cores in the game, so I combined those items with this new gadget, this new switch, and combined it using the switch code I already had. So it just shares that code with all the other switches, and there we have it, something that has functionality. As soon as this switch type thingy gets its power core, it will switch on, and everything that listens to a switch on event will activate or open or whatever it is. So for now I've been using vertical doors, and they will open up as soon as they hear or see the switch trigger, which is now created by this power source type thingy. Alright, that's it for this week's video. I'm actually preparing a demo version of Residual. I'm working on that now, which means cleaning up the interface here and there, making sure everything that is in the game is actually working. The controls have to be customizable, things like that. Because last night I got an email from Steam, so this game is going to be part of the Indie Game Festival thingy they're doing in June and July, around that date. Just as long as I can get a demo version built before May the 15th. So I have to hurry up because that's in 2 weeks from now. By the time you're watching this video, I only have 1 week left, so I hope I actually have the demo version done now by the time you're watching. The demo won't be playable just yet because I think it will be playable in June during that festival, and I hope that Steam will actually give some promotion to it that way. So I've never done anything like this before, but I imagine it's gonna be good and positive. And of course, some people will be playing this demo version and find that games aren't made in a few weeks and that there's a lot of stuff missing and lacking, and those negative things will happen. But I'm hoping that most people will understand that this is a demo very early and see the potential of the game, and hopefully wishlist the game, and hopefully good things come from that. I have no idea. We will see, and I will tell you later on as soon as I got some information. which I think will be June or July. I'm not very well prepared for things like this. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any thoughts on residual or whatever, and see you next week. Bye. So if you're a game developer, one tip from my end, add a console like this so that you can quickly test stuff, and it saves lives. Well, not lives, but it saves hours, minutes, at most. It saves. It's a good thing to add to your game.